My name's Brennan. I'm an addict alcoholic. I have 249 days clean. I grew up with a younger sister. Both of my parents are still together to this day. My dad was a college basketball ref for the Pac-10, ACC, and the SEC. So he traveled a lot. Sometimes I wouldn't even see him for weeks. So growing up, my mom worked a full-time job. She worked at Bank of America. She was pretty high up. I had to take on the responsibility of being the dad around the house and protecting my sister. And my dad in 2001 got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer that fights the common cold. My dad eventually fought it, and he was in and out of the hospital for a year and a half. He got a bone marrow transplant. And growing up also, I was a huge baseball player, and that was a really big passion that I had. Around 7th or 8th grade, I started using a substance for the first time. I smoked weed and tried ecstasy for the first time and drank. And then 9th grade year came around and basically tried cocaine for the first time and Xanax. I'd go days without remembering stuff, and I thought it was so cool because I'd escape reality and I wouldn't have to worry about it. I couldn't tell you how many times I ended up in Detox or in a treatment center or in the hospital. I was up at my cabin that my parents have up in Flagstaff. Basically, I drove to get cups and I got pulled over by the police while I was drunk, and I got a minor DUI. As a result of that, I had to go to a boarding school up in the Oak Creek area in Arizona. There was spice and weed and alcohol everywhere. And so it was basically the same thing, but just you could do it without getting the consequence of your parents. I got kicked out for smoking weed there. I did last quite a while, almost 2 whole semesters there. I did go to my first treatment center, which was Park Place, for getting kicked out. I was there for about 20-something days. I ended up going to a different high school than what I went to right before I went to the boarding school. I had a good first 2 months, and then everything got worse again. I started doing Xanax, drinking, and cocaine, and all these other drugs. I barely passed high school. I did end up getting my high school diploma, which was very lucky and by the grace of God. I then moved to NAU, and I lived on campus. Met this girl, and she became my girlfriend, and we moved into an apartment together, and it was a horrible relationship, and it was mostly my fault. I'll take the blame for that because I was using drugs and she didn't have any experience with what I was doing and why I was doing it. We ended up getting evicted from an apartment, and then I got evicted from another apartment. I moved back down here and I tried heroin for the first time. Mixing it with Xanax is no good because it is just very deadly. I've been to several different treatment centers. In 2014, I went to ABT for the first time. I spent 45 days there. I completed the program. That night, I got drunk. I remember it was the Notre Dame ASU game. I drank and smoked weed and did heroin that night right when I left. And I was basically in and out of treatment centers, couldn't hold anything, couldn't hold a relationship with my family or anything. I've been to California to try to get clean, Las Vegas. In mid-February, I called ABT to see if I could get in for my 3rd time on my own accord, might I add, about getting into treatment because I was doing drugs that I'd never seen myself doing. I hate doing meth, and I was doing meth all the time. And they told me if I came in that they could help me. So then I took an Uber and I came in. By the grace of God, I've been clean. Ever since I got sober in February, my life has been totally a 180 from what it was like for the past 6 years. I had never managed to have more than 56 days clean. And this time around, I got into treatment and I started shutting up and taking suggestions and trying to do the next right thing. I work with a sponsor and a car. I've been at a car since I was 16. I've got an amazing girlfriend who's also in recovery. I'm not perfect by any means, might I say that. I still mess up. I still have hiccups. But just by lending an ear and listening to someone who's suffering and letting them know that there is a way out and you don't have to live like this anymore, and you can change your life drastically just by taking the first step, and that's making a call to get into treatment.